What Really Happened radio show. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Monday, December 21st, 2015, the start of Christmas week. Merry Christmas, Malikalikimaka, Fro Weihnacht, and all of the rest of that. It's also the shortest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere. The further north you are, the more obvious it is. Here in Hawaii, since we're close to the equator, it's not as obvious, except that this time of year we can see the sunset over the ocean from our back porch area, and we can watch for the green flash. And we've seen that on more than a few occasions, and the rest of the year it goes down over the mountains on the western part of the island. We have lots of stuff to talk about today. The phone lines are open, 877-300-7645, 877-300-7645. Tom is sitting in our control room, twiddling the dials, keeping us out of trouble, ready to answer the phone when you call on in. Now, a couple of program notes. The Lady Claire will be joining us tomorrow in hour number 3, because remember, this is a short broadcast week. We're live today and tomorrow, and they're going to be repeat shows for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so our overworked and underpaid technical staff can take off and go visit family for Christmas like everybody else is doing anyway. So we'll be back tomorrow, and then the next show after that's going to be Monday, so make a program note here. Now, real quick response. I got a lot of email from people talking about how all of a sudden visiting my website is leading to their browsers hanging up. And you might want to, if you're using Firefox and your Firefox keeps locking up, the problem may be Firefox itself. Ever since they came out with the new version, it does not handle sloppy Java code writing very graciously. And advertisers tend to be real quick and dirty about their Java code. They dump everything into globals, and because the Java execution space is single, if two people use the same variable name for a global, the whole system can get confused. I've had to switch to Chrome, and it's working much better. So that's in reply to all the emails I've been getting about that. Now, turning to the news, there are some issues going on over in Syria. As you heard last week, Russia had proposed a Syrian peace plan where everybody stops fighting and Bashar al-Assad and the opposition get together and they hash out a whole new governmental system, and they pave the way for democratic elections at which Assad can stand to run for president again. And everybody agreed, and they passed this unanimously through the United Nations Security Council. And even before the ink was dry in the resolution, Obama and Kerry did a 180 and came on out and said, we're not doing regime change in Syria. We're not interested in doing that, but Assad must go. And that obviously says they're back to the same agenda they've always had. They're just saying whatever they think is going to take public opinion's negative pressure off of them. No, we're not regime changing. We just want that guy to go. And basically, we're seeing criticisms from all over the world over at Sputnik News, basically saying the U.S. has two agendas in Syria. The first is to get rid of Assad, which they've been trying to do for going on 5 years, and the second, to find a way to kick Russia out, because Russia's success against ISIS in Syria and now Iraq and soon to be Libya is seen as a huge political defeat for the United States of America. And so Obama wants Putin out of Syria so they can go back to bombing the Syrian country and its people while pretending to be after ISIS. It's not going to happen, I don't think. I don't think at all. They're back to the same game. And it was like I got this phone call from John in Barbados on Friday saying they back down. I said, no, I don't think so. Try a plan A. If that doesn't work, go to plan B. And if plan B is failing, it's guaranteed they got a plan C. And that's what was indicated over the weekend when Kerry and Obama went back to saying Assad must go, Assad must go. Assad, that's it. Now, interesting little story out of Investment Watch blog commenting on the fact that the United States, which is refusing its own pilots permission to bomb ISIS oil convoys going into Turkey, has also forbidden them from hitting the locations where these propaganda videos are being made. They don't want an interruption to all that booga-booga propaganda coming on out to make you afraid of ISIS. And one of the reasons for that came out in the story in Press TV, where Scott Bennett, a former U.S. Army psychological warfare officer, is saying the U.S. provided all that professional quality video gear for these videos to be made. And then discovered, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, by Rita Katz and her site intelligence group. Now, U.S. politician Art Olivier, in another interview on Press TV, is saying that without U.S. air cover to keep the Syrian warplanes away, ISIS can't survive. And he's absolutely right. And now the Syrian airplanes are over ISIS, and they're giving them grief, and the U.S. cannot intervene out of fear of the Russian warplanes and the S-400, along with the fact that the United States does not have the permission of Syria's government to be there in the first place. Russia is there by invitation. Now, we're seeing more and more indications that the coalition of allies supporting the U.S. agenda in Syria is beginning to crumble. And the French defense minister, ahead of his trip to Moscow today, told journalists Paris is going to ask Russia to increase its actions against the Islamic State. France is going to offer intelligence sharing and plans for a joint vision on combating terrorist groups in Syria. Russia's response, yeah, we're ready to go. We're ready to do that. We're ready to ramp this up. So France has gone over to saying, let's let Russia clean this up. They're obviously doing a much better job of it than the Americans are. And the U.S. and much of Europe and Turkey are still out there throwing their little tantrums. They have now officially closed their airspace to Russian warplanes flying anti-ISIS missions. In other words, bomber missions coming down from Russia to go into Syria have to go around the long way, using up fuel and range. It just makes it more and more obvious which side Turkey is on here. Now, we're getting a very alarming story out of RIF.com. According to Muammar Gaddafi's cousin, ISIS stole sarin gas from Libya and has already used it. I question the word stole. I don't think ISIS needs to steal anything from Libya. The U.S. was smuggling Libyan weapons through that consulate in Benghazi to ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria. And I don't think it was confined just to guns and bullets, especially given the number of times the U.S. tried to frame Bashar al-Assad for the use of poison gas. Kurdish forces enter scene to retake ISIS-occupied regions in eastern Aleppo. Again, without the U.S. interference overhead. Under Syria's air cover, they're going like gangbusters. And let's see, Russian-Syrian warplanes turn Homs province into heck for ISIS terrorists. So they're making gains there. Iraqi forces liberate half of Abu Zayyab region in Ramadi that had been under the control of ISIS. And once again, we are hearing complaints from the Iraqi government. U.S. deliberately hindering Iraq advances. And they were saying this even before that U.S. airstrike that killed 20 Iraqi soldiers in Anbar. And maybe the U.S. is going to behave itself, but now there's a report that a Canadian jet hit Iraqi army positions in Anbar. So it's really obvious which side the U.S. is actually on. They want ISIS to solidify their hold, leading to the balkanization and breakup of Iraq. We've got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to take a phone call from Andrew in New York. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Michael. I want to talk about, Hillary Clinton. Saturday during the debate, she said that ISIS is supposedly using Donald Trump videos as propaganda tools. I'm thinking to myself, what is the U.S. government going to do next? Are they going to teach a false flag by ISIS and say the reason they attacked is because people were voting for Donald Trump? Are they just going to scare us not to vote for Donald Trump?
Well, they're going to do whatever they think is going to keep Donald Trump out of the race here. I mean, at this point, there is no question Hillary Clinton's going to be the Democratic nominee. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's chair of the Democratic National Committee, is not even trying to hide the fact that she has decided Hillary will be the candidate, and whatever the Democratic voters and Democratic delegates want is simply not relevant anymore. There's a huge call for her to resign, especially after that Bernie Sanders computer goof. But from Hillary's campaign point of view, she can beat any one of the GOP nominees except Donald Trump. And Hillary is replaying Richard Nixon's re-election campaign, where his creep went out and sabotaged all of the Democrats that would have given Richard Nixon a huge bit of trouble in the re-election, so that Nixon got to run against the one guy he knew he could beat easily, George McGovern. And Hillary is trying to do that to Donald Trump. Hillary knows that if she goes up in a debate against Donald Trump, he is going to make her look like the scheming little weasel that she is, and she is out to get him out of the race. And unfortunately, she's being aided by the GOP leadership, which is so afraid of Donald Trump and his independence. They're willing to lose the White House to Hillary Clinton to keep Trump from running there.
Speaking of Donald Trump, I want to talk about during the weekend, like, since he was endorsed by Vladimir Putin, and the media tried to say that this is the reason why Donald Trump should not become president, and the media were saying we should not endorse Putin or like him because supposedly he killed journalists, and Donald Trump was like, do you have the proof or not? And they didn't bring any proof, and Donald Trump was saying, well, the U.S. government has killed many people too.
Yes.
So,
yeah, you're absolutely right. First of all, Putin expressed his admiration for Trump. He didn't say, I endorse him as president. That's a very important point to keep in mind. Okay, Putin didn't endorse him. He just said he admired Trump, and Trump admired Putin, as so many of us actually do. But again, the corporate media is out there. They're trying to imply that there's some kind of a link that a vote for Donald Trump is a vote for Putin to be in charge of the United States of America, which actually I'm not having that much of a problem with right now when you look at how well he's running Russia. But again, from now through the election, a year from now, it's just a guarantee that the corporate media is going to say and do anything they can to make both Trump and Putin look bad, and it keeps blowing up in their face because everybody now stands up and say, okay, you've made this assertion, where's your proof? And they come back and say, well, we don't have to show you the proof. We're the corporate media. You're just supposed to listen to us and believe us. Those days are gone forever. They are not coming back. If you cannot prove what you're saying, we're just not going to listen to you guys anymore. That's it. Okay?
And the last point I want to make, all right, thank you, Michael.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here and get on back to the news. Now, getting on back over to Iraq. Apparently, a commander in the Iraq Volunteer Forces found a cell phone on an ISIS ringleader's body, and they did a data readout on this phone, and they found links to Turkish intelligence, various other Turkish government agencies, once again confirming Turkey is on the side of the ISIS terrorists. The evidence is just piling up. Now, all wars are duplicitous. All wars are based on deception, but the current one is setting records for just who's lying about which side they're on and who's aiding who and who's really against who. It's really getting on out there. Putin is out there blasting the U.S. interventionist foreign policy, saying it has become intolerable. And this is especially important because of something Hillary said during the Saturday debate about how we were right to go into Libya because Gaddafi was committing atrocities against his people. Okay, where's your proof? I don't have proof. I'm a candidate for the White House. You're supposed to believe me. And she's out there trying to defend going on in and smashing Libya into rubble and leaving a power vacuum which has caused the nation to descend into complete and utter chaos. And she's out there saying, we're right to do that. I'm not giving up on Libya. Nobody should. And Putin is making a valid point. Look at what happens to all the countries the U.S. intervenes in. Look at the quality of life for ordinary people before. Look at the quality of life for ordinary people after it. It is inevitable. 100% it is always bad for the people of that country. And the government tells you, we're going to go in and make life better for them. We're going to bring them American-style democracy, and they're going to be so happy and they're going to love us. And it's exactly the opposite that happens. A puppet ruler, a dictatorship is imposed. Their nation gets looted for multinational corporations, and those people hate us. Or they hate our government. Unfortunately, they can't reach our government, so they're going to take it out on us. Now, Putin is sending a very clear message about this interventionalism because, as you know, Syria's President Assad is planning to go to Tehran to talk to the Iranian government there about what's going on. And Putin has assigned 4 Russian fighter jets to escort Assad's plane all the way. And those fighter jets have orders to shoot down any approaching aircraft. And so what Putin is sending a message is there isn't going to be an accident like Flight 17 or Flight 370 or the Sukhoi 24. No more accidents. Now, Putin also came out with another statement that I think a lot of people are listening to, which is that the European Union should start deciding for itself what's best for the European Union and stop being a vassal state of the United States of America. Just because Europe is a member of NATO does not place them under political domination by the United States, although the point of view from the United States is exactly the opposite. If you're part of NATO, you work for us. And supporting this collapse of the U.S.-centric coalition is this article coming on out from Giza Death Star, strange noises coming out of Germany, in which they're talking about how all of a sudden Merkel is turning 180 degrees on all these policies. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. So we're talking about this article, the strange noises coming out of Germany, and it's pointing out how in recent weeks we have seen Angela Merkel and the German government reverse course on a number of policies that they had been going along with the U.S. agenda on, together with the approach by France to Russia to ramp up the war against terrorism. It looks like the coalition of the we got dragged along without our permission is starting to fall apart. Now, over in Istanbul, police are firing tear gas on protesters who are protesting over the crackdown by Erdogan's government. So Turkey is in turmoil as well, and then that's escalating as well. Now, up in Bagram, Afghanistan, there's been a car bomb attack that killed 6 NATO service members. Bagram, if you will remember, is one of the locations of the formerly secret CIA torture centers. And people who are tortured or whose family members are tortured, they tend to hold a grudge. They do. They generally tend to do that. A spokesman for the Yemeni army is now saying that they have positioned their Ansarullah missiles in locations where 300 strategic Saudi military centers can now be attacked. They're sending a warning to Saudi Arabia that this proxy war to reconquer Yemen for U.S. puppet rule is going to become very, very costly. We're going to go ahead and take a phone call here. Tom in San Diego, aloha, welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Hello, are you there? Oh, he just dropped the phone. All right, that's fine. The Israeli military has started firing artillery into Lebanon one day after another one of their airstrikes into Damascus supposedly killed a Hezbollah leader. Meanwhile, over in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu is getting ready to strip Jerusalem residency from 230,000 Palestinians who previously were given identity cards to allow them to live and work within Jerusalem. The problem is that if Israel were to hold elections, that's a huge voting bloc. And so now Netanyahu wants to strip their residency and their rights from these Palestinians in Jerusalem. Apparently, I guess, kicked them back out over the fence to keep Jerusalem Jewish. But we're not an apartheid state. And anybody who says we are is a dirty, filthy anti-Semite who wants Hitler to come back and gas Jewish babies in the ovens. Now, Spain has issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu over the 2010 attack on the humanitarian aid flotilla, in which 8 people were killed, one of them an American citizen, which pointedly drew no protest whatsoever from the government of the United States of America. Spanish Judge Jose de la Mata has ordered both the police and the Guardia to immediately notify him if Netanyahu or any one of 6 other Israeli officials cross Spain's border. They're going to be clapped in irons, or at least until the Israeli consulate intervenes, because remember, they arrested one in Great Britain last week on war crimes charges, and the Israeli consulate got involved, and the British government said, oh, we're sorry, we should have remembered. We can never arrest Israelis, no matter what they do here. Getting on back to Spain, the anti-austerity party is making huge gains. The ruling party loses their majority. So once again, we are seeing the people of Europe have had it with the European Central Bank. They've had it with imposed austerity to make the bankers richer. And now that they've lost the Schengen, the no border controls inside the EU, they're realizing they've got all the negatives of being in the European Union and none of the positives. The positives have all gone away. It's all downside now. Now we're getting a good steady drip dose of the booga booga. Over in Massachusetts, the Nashua schools were closed today amid a threat of violence. They received a threatening email. We're going to hurt students. We know that there were a whole bunch of those emails sent out last week. They all turned out to be hoaxes. The LA Unified School District took them seriously, closed all the schools. They're hitting this over and over again. I'm very concerned that the government may be planning a false flag attack against a school full of children to try and reignite the war fever in the American people, or get us all on board with a gun ban, or going after ISIS, or going after Iran, or going after Assad. Because lies, fraud, and deception is all this government knows how to do. Because they've been doing it for so long, because it gets them what they want, they don't actually remember any other way to run a country. So they're kind of stuck. They've got the one tool they know how to use, and they're just going to go on using it until somebody walks up to them and says, look, this doesn't work anymore. So quit killing innocent people to try and motivate us to more war. We ain't buying it, and you're killing innocent Americans. Now, there was another bomb scare where an Air France jet made an emergency landing in Kenya after a terror threat. A suspicious object was found on board. It turned out to be a simulated bomb. Now, whether somebody made this to generate a scare, or it was one of the training bombs that are routinely used by airport security and somebody left it on the airplane, which has happened before, where they'll have the fake bombs and fake things, and they'll put them on the plane and let the dog try and find them, or the agents find them, and they miss one. And somebody finds it in midair, and everybody has a panic. Meanwhile, Sweden is now on lockdown because of threats of terror attacks by the evil ISIS, not only in Sweden, but supposedly in Europe and here in the United States of America. So welcome on in, refugees. We're just waiting to be made sitting ducks here. Now, the latest propaganda video from ISIS is claiming the Philippines are their new training camp. So, by golly, the U.S. now has an excuse to invade the Philippines and bring them back closer under U.S. control, because they've been kind of straining at their leash for a while. Now, FEMA is actually launching a program to help churches prepare for active shooter incidents, which I'm not sure if they're going to tell them to stab the shooter with scissors, like the Department of Homeland Security does, or if they're actually going to say it's okay to have armed people in the church, the good guys with guns to keep out the bad guys with the guns. Remember that quote from the Bible, from Jesus/Joshua? I come not to bring peace, but the sword. Anyway. Now, all over the corporate media, we've been seeing this other booga-booga that's running all over the place, how Iranian hackers infiltrated the computers that controlled a New York dam, and this was back in 2013, but they're making a big deal about it now. Didn't report it on 2013, but it's a big deal now. I have a couple of problems. First of all, considering that the U.S. government still can't find the authors of malware or the cyber criminals, I question their ability to identify who got into the computers that control the New York dam. Second, mission-critical computer systems should not be on the Internet in the first place. And my understanding was the computer systems actually running things like power plants, reactors, and dams are, in fact, air-gapped. So I don't know who put the computer running the actual dam on the network, if it ever was. I'm sure the office computers are on the network, but those office computers don't control the dam. Common sense is going to tell you to keep them isolated. So this is just more propaganda to demonize the Iranians. Set the stage for a virtual 911. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. And we're talking about this stream of booga-booga that we're all getting about bombs on planes, Iranian hackers attacking the dam. And I'm not buying that damn story. Again, because common sense is going to tell you if you have computers controlling a critical piece of infrastructure, you do not connect them to the Internet. That's why Stuxnet had to be smuggled in to the Iranian centrifuge facility on a flash drive, because it's all air gap. And again, how can they possibly know it's Iranian hackers? Did they send them an email? Hi, we're Iranians, you schmucks, get your waders on. Just more booga-booga. Now then, there's a story coming on out, and it was over on Natural News. And it initially sounds very alarming, but I have to be very honest, this traces back to a single source. A single host in the independent media is making this claim, and I'm not sure how real it is, and I'll explain why a little further in. The story goes that the Department of Homeland Security is placing independent media broadcasters on the domestic terror watch lists in the hopes that when the police pull them over, the police will confront them with guns drawn. The situation is tense, possibly escalating and leading to the shooting of the independent media hosts. That's the claim. And yeah, I think we can pretty much assume that many people in the U.S. government and the corporate media wish we would all go away. And we will when we have an honest government and a truthful, accurate corporate media. I'll be happy to shut all this down, spend the rest of my life as Claire's roadie. But we don't have that reality, so the independent media has a valid job to do, and it's created some hostility. Now, here in Hawaii, things are very cool. We have one advantage here in Hawaii over the mainland, and that is we've got really mellow police officers here. We don't get the out-of-control behaviors. One officer, shoots 5 people, or 5 officers shoot one person that we get on the mainland. In fact, the last shooting like that we had was a couple of Christmases ago when somebody in the Secret Service gunned down an innocent customer at the McDonald's in Honolulu. But that doesn't count because he wasn't HPD. Now, Claire and I have a lot of friends in the local police department. We have a neighbor with a beautiful 1-year-old kid. Sees us as Auntie Claire and Uncle Mike, which is kind of a Hawaiian thing. All adults are auntie and uncle to everybody else's kids. It's the Aloha State. Now, that being said, the reason I am dubious about the story is, were something to happen to an independent media broadcaster where the cops pull them over and shoot them dead because they were on a DHS terror watch list, the PR disaster that would result, because every other independent media host would raise a huge public stink about it. So I'm hoping cooler heads will prevail, but we see so much knee-jerk thinking. In fact, it's not even thinking anymore. It's purely reactionary behavior coming out of the federal government these days. Of course, again, thinking back to that official to Veterans Affairs, was abusing himself in an all-glass walled conference room in full view of the staff and a teachers' convention across the street. Makes you wonder what kind of people wind up in government service. And if these are the people running the government, no wonder this country is in such serious trouble. All right, we're going to grab ourselves a phone call here. John in Vancouver, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? John, are you there?
I'm here.
Ah, there you are. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, I just a question, Mike. I always listen to you on TuneIn Radio on my cell phone at work. I'm off work this week, so I can go to Bambuza and listen and watch you as well.
Okay.
But I don't know if you know that it used to be on GCN2, and that dropped. That there is no GCN2 now, and I'm listening to you now on GCN4, which all the days last week you dropped after the first hour.
Okay, well, you know, I don't know what's going on with GCN here, and I'll tell you what, John, I'm going to ask Tom to pick up this line again. Tom, are you there? And grab this line and get the details from John, because I'm getting all these complaints about how people can't reach my show over the smartphone apps, and it seems to be becoming a real major problem. So, John, I'm going to put you back on hold, and hopefully Tom is going to pick up the call and get the details on that. And let me leave a message here. All right, there we go. Now, getting on back here. Yeah, it's a problem, and unfortunately, I am not kept up to date with what GCN does. Very often, I'm the last one to find out when there's been a change to the channels or the website, and it has been a bit of an issue. Hopefully we'll get it all sorted out here. Okay. Now then, getting on to the economic news. Story coming out of Zero Hedge. The Fed has delivered far more than just a lump of coal this time. This is one of many articles saying that Janet Yellen's raising of the rate this last week was more for political gain and publicity, and may have actually occurred too soon to really be of any benefit. In fact, it may actually cause some harm. We were seeing on the stock market today, started high, going on down, desperate upshove at the end, trying to keep it in the green, trying to keep it in the 17,000s. But we're hearing more and more indications that Yellen did this so the incumbents can say, see, the economy's in recovery, vote us back in next election. And this is something historically that we have seen every election year. They'll do whatever it takes to make the economy look good. They'll print up lots of money and dump it all over the people. And then, of course, the economic damage is dealt with after the election is over, and it's usually far, far worse. But that's how politics dominates economic policy. Let's see. Another story that we're seeing out of blacklisted news. Central banks have pushed the middle class down into neo-feudal serfdom. That has been their goal all along. That has been their goal. They're trying to bring back feudalism and serfdom, where the ultra-rich own everything, and you live your entire life working for them, living your life by their leave. The American dream was people owning the land. The feudal dream is the land owns the people. It's not an accident. That's what they want to see come on back. Citigroup is going to cut 2,000 of their jobs right after Christmas, so enjoy your holiday. And Congress has opened the floodgates to foreign investment in U.S. real estate. And the reason this is a problem is because people who live here, the indigenous American people, could find themselves outbid for their own homes. And it's a very reckless thing to do. Yes, it may bring more money into the system, but it's going to cause a lot of hardship for the American people. Now, the number of London households that are becoming homeless has soared under Mayor Boris Johnson. The latest estimates are that this Christmas in England, more than 103,000 children will be homeless this Christmas. Charles Dickens would feel right at home looking at this situation, but that's what it's getting on back to. Now, the leader of Italy's Lega Nord party, Matteo Salvini, is claiming that Merkel is in a rush to sign the transatlantic trade and investment partnership before the public learns any more details about what's going on inside there. Same situation we're seeing in the U.S., both for the TTIP and the TPP. They're trying to get them signed and ratified and made to work before the public sees everything that's in there. And what has already leaked out is very clearly not in the interest of the general public, but in the interest of large corporations. Now, here's a very interesting little story, and this comes under the category of I told you so. Der Spiegel is reporting that the German central bank has decided that 80% of the gold owned by Germany and stored at the Federal Reserve can be allowed to stay there. We don't need to bring it home. That whole repatriation thing, that was a lot of nonsense. You know, the world still revolves around the dollar, so we're just going to let the Federal Reserve hang on to that 80% of our German gold. Now, so far, out of 2,020 tons of gold, I'll pick this up on the other side of the news and commercial break. We'll be right back. Hello, hi, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 877-300-7645. We've got a caller waiting on the line. I'm going to get to you in just a second, but I want to finish up this story about how the German central bank has decided that the Federal Reserve can just hang on to the gold. There was more than 1,500 tons of gold belonging to Germany being, in theory, stored in New York. Only 300 tons is being sent back, and it's going to take until 2020 to do that. And already the German repatriation people are saying the gold coming back from the Federal Reserve are not the stamped and marked bars that were sent there in the first place, and they're of lower quality than what was sent. But the reason for this decision is a very simple one. Germany's central bank is more loyal to the other central bankers than it is to Germany or the people. And so they're going to go along with this. They're not thinking what's best for the nation and the people, only what's best for those central banks. All right, we're going to grab a phone call here from Brandon in San Francisco. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I've just been thinking about this whole gun debate and how farcical it is. And I wanted to reference a story, a personal story from the '89 Loma Prieta earthquake.
Yes. And
how I witnessed my fellow man deteriorate into basically a state of chaos in my condominium complex, to the point where there were kind of roaming bands of guys going around, like, destroying parking garage gates and the swimming pool gate. We had no power. All our police resources were stressed to the max. As you can remember, that '89 earthquake.
I remember it very well, yes.
So at the time, I remember I was at my apartment getting ready to watch the World Series, and my girlfriend worked kind of far away, and the earthquake happened, and I had no way of contacting her. And as the evening progressed, I was worried about her. And then all these young neighbors started acting crazy, like it was this mentality of lawlessness. And that was the first time that I ever really thought, it's time to get a gun. I had been thinking about it, and this was just something that confirmed my my thought. I've grown up around guns, hunting. I've witnessed deers being skinned for food, eating venison, and so guns have always been a part of most Americans that I know. And so, but it just came to me at that time when people are arguing about the usefulness of guns and to defend yourself, and that is something that I can truly state at where if things did get out of control, I was on my own to defend myself and my girlfriend. But the whole psychology, the mob mentality, I know there's a whole study on how people act differently in groups. They're more willing to do things. So if we're heading into any kind of like solar flare, EMP that could knock things out, I mean, this is the argument that we need to make, that, hey, these idiots that are trying to grab our guns for their BS reasons, it's obvious they're just doing it for the grand scheme of things, the New World Order. But this is an argument that we could push back on, and I'm sure other people could share stories similar to mine. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
Well, I remember back during the Rodney King riots when the only people whose stores were not looted down there in South Central were store owners who had firearms and ammunition, because store owners, the LAPD ran like heck when the riots began, as business owners went to buy guns and ran into the 15-day waiting period, and then the LA City Council passed a block on ammunition sales in the area, making the situation worse, because the rioters were just breaking into the gun stores and stealing the guns and ammo, and the law-abiding citizens were just, set up as a hot meal for them. And again, for those of you who are preppers to some extent, and you've got storable food, and you've got water and batteries and everything, if your neighbors know it's there, and something happens, the economy collapses, the supply chain collapses, something happens, whose door do you think they're going to be kicking down when they start getting hungry and thirsty? And that's just an ugly reality. We have to deal with that here in Hawaii. If our supply chain were to collapse, I mean, it is an island. They're going to be eating each other after about 3 months, I would say.
Yeah.
And so
I think water, that's your main concern.
But what you hear from the gun grabbers is, oh, that's never going to happen, and the police are always going to be there to take care of you, and if we take guns away from everybody, then they can't come and attack you for your food and water, which is nonsense. They can come and attack you with axes, with sledgehammers, with knives and swords. The people who want to grab the guns don't care about your health and safety or protection from crime. They are scared of you because they want to take more away from you, and they know that you are getting angry about it. And that's their agenda. And they don't care if you wind up getting killed by your neighbors in a crisis or if you're the victim of a crime. They literally do not care. Their goal is to be able to sleep soundly in their beds at night, surrounded by all their stolen riches, and not have to worry about somebody coming to take it back.
Right. Yes, and just to let the audience know, I did go out and purchase a Sig Sauer 226, which is a beautiful gun. And I feel quite safe with it. I feel a little more prepared. I had another comment I'd like to make.
Yeah, we got about 2 minutes before the commercial break.
So we just had a kid assassinated up here in San Francisco by the SFPD, and their policy is to escalate situations, which seems counterintuitive. But basically, this guy was shot by 7 officers, I believe, 16 times, and the reason I'm mentioning this is I've been finding out there are most of the departments in the United States are now being trained by Israel. Israel is paying to fly police chiefs out to Israel and train them and their officers. I know for a fact that Oakland PD has done this, and I haven't gotten facts on San Francisco, but it all came out with in Baltimore. Israeli soldier was taking a cab ride, and the cab got in an accident. The police showed up, and the police gave this guy a ride, and the police officer was telling him how great the Israeli soldiers were and how badass they were. And he goes, "How do you know this?" And he said, I just came back from Israel. I trained with you guys. You guys kick ass." And he's like, whoa, wait a second. So he started digging into it. And it's I don't know, for lack of a better term, it's an epidemic. It is, and it's intentional. The American police force are being trained to treat the American people the way the IDF treats the Palestinians. That's the new model. And again, it is a symptom of the fact that the government is very much afraid of us because we are waking up. We're not believing the lies. We're not doing what we're being told to do. We are not wanting our children to go off and be killed and crippled in more wars for the bankers. And, the government is very much afraid of us because, unfortunately, the path they have chosen to go down with this war on all the resource-rich areas of the world, they can't turn around and call it off. And so the only way they can keep going, knowing that the American people know what this is really all about, is they have to disarm us
so that we don't have any choice but to do what we're told.
Yes. So with that thought, I want to encourage all the listeners to go on YouTube and look at these videos. The one guy in particular, he's so well-spoken, and his father is actually one of the main trainers, and he's totally abandoned this whole philosophy. He's speaking out against it as a former soldier. But please go look at these videos, folks, and inform yourselves. And
all right. Well, we're gonna have to let you go. Unfortunately, we got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We've got a caller waiting on the line. I'm going to finish up the economic news, then I'm going to take the phone call here. Now, Russia is basically out there saying that sooner or later, somehow, Ukraine does have to pay the debt they owe Russia for all the natural gas they have been using. Now, Russia has cut Ukraine a huge amount of slack, knowing that if they shut that gas valve off, Kiev is going to scream, oh, it's all Putin's fault. They're starving our people in the middle of a cold winter. We're all freezing to death, and it's all Russia's fault. So Russia has given them a lot of slack. But Kiev owes Russia $3.5 billion. They technically defaulted over this last weekend. Kiev took the position of choosing not to make the payment because Russia won't accept our terms. Can you imagine going over to your credit card company and saying, I refuse to pay my bill this month because you won't accept the deal that I want to set up for repayment? How far would you get with that? That'll tell you kind of where Kiev is sitting right now. Christmas shopping season, make or break time of the year for many retail corporations, and they're not doing well. And apparently where it's really being felt are the big ticket items. Apparently cheap is the new chic this year. And people who used to buy tablets and smartphones and things like that, they're going down to the small little decorator items that are much less expensive. So, again, despite all the promises and prognostications and encouragements by the corporate media, it is another disastrous Christmas shopping season. The upside being, of course, the January sales are going to be great. For those of you who actually have money to spend, which is not too many of you. All right, we're going to go ahead and grab a phone call from Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Michael. I just wanted to call and follow up with what your last caller talked about, the guy who was up in the Bay Area, talking about Loma Prieta and so on. And everything he said was, of course, true, and the veneer of civilization is very, very low, and there's lots of parts of LA that have zero reserves of water, things like that. But the real reason why we should uphold the Second Amendment is exactly the reasons that they laid out, the Founding Fathers laid out. And it's right now that the police look upon us as the enemy, as you guys talked about, that they are confiscating without any sort of adjudication our property. The government has turned its back on the Bill of Rights. We have a president who can arrest you for without any sort of charge or ever getting to see a lawyer or be charged or anything forever. They torture you. The police torture you, as in Chicago. They lie to you completely. So what else is there? We have a president also who claims the right to kill you if he feels it necessary, without any adjudication. So it's already here. All the postulating and theorizing that the Founding Fathers put out, it's here already. And you just have to hear it in aggregate. And, it all in one place, and people might be able to say, well, yeah, we really can't trust this government. They lie to us about everything, and they don't mean us any good whatsoever. So,
no, we're all just walking wallets and election machine button pushers to them, and breeders of future workers and soldiers, and that's basically it. They are, in fact, treating us like a herd of livestock, telling us what medicines we have to have, what medicines we're not allowed to have, what food we will eat, what food we will not eat. They really do treat us like they think they own us, and that's a complete reversal of the design of the United States of America, where the government is supposed to be the servant of the collective people not the other way around. And it is very much out of control. Now, having said that, and while I'm a huge supporter of the Second Amendment, and I think everybody ought to own a gun and know how to use it safely, okay, I'm not advocating any kind of a violent uprising against the federal government, because that is exactly the excuse they're looking for to drop what's left of the Constitution into the shredder and declare national emergency and martial law. I am still convinced that if we all sit back, disconnect from the government, don't listen to them, don't obey their orders, don't fill out their paperwork, and just kick back with a soft drink and a box of popcorn and watch the show, that the U.S. government is well on its way to collapsing the way the former Soviet Union did.
Well, Mike, I know your fears of you don't want to be branded as somebody who's, and rightfully so, who's encouraging any sort of insurrection.
No. You're misunderstanding me completely. If I actually thought a violent revolution was going to work at this time, I would say that. Okay, but I'm saying it won't work now. It would play into the hands of the federal government, and so right now I counsel patience and caution.
Well, I agree with you. I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. I just thank the Lord that there's a few places. Yours is primarily one of them that you can hear all the reasons at one place. And the more people that hear about police torture, governmental torture, the fact that they can kill us and imprison us and so on and so forth, and all the litany of reasons why we should be armed, and it's the government. That's, they do kill us. They false flags and endless wars and so on. That we need to hear it all in one place. That argument has to be holistic rather than just piecemeal, or just say, they against the government. You have to know the reasons and where we're at. And
I get all this hate email all the time. You hate America, you're a commie and everything. So no, I love America and I love the American people, and I am loyal to the American people at all times and the American nation at all times, and loyal to the government when it deserves it, and it doesn't right now. And that's the issue. Okay, the legal, legitimate government of the United States of America is one that respects the limitations imposed on it by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. This government does not. It has broken the contract with the American people. And as a result, the American people are under no moral or legal obligation to obey this government, do what the government says, sacrifice our kids in their wars of conquest. If somebody brought down the government, it's the government itself that did it by acting illegally, unconstitutionally, and illegitimately.
Michael, it's the only American exceptionalism that is real and that I agree with and that I fervently believe in is the Constitution. And it's, of course, being overridden and run roughshod over. But that is what sets us apart from other people. And if we're not adhering to it, then we're worse than most other governments.
Yeah, we're worse because a lot of people sacrifice greatly to give us that Constitution, and we should not lightly cast it aside. Got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the call, Peter. Back with more phone calls after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, and we're going to go ahead and grab some phone calls. Damien in New York City, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Hello, you're on the air.
All right, Michael, I didn't hear you at all, and then all of a sudden you came on. Okay. Gremlin.
Yes, we seem to have a lot of them these days, and they're breeding. Where's Planned Parenthood when you really need it?
Honey. So on this issue of what the thing on topic here with the Second Amendment issue. So I think people need to kind of take a little bit of a pause and step back and realize that what you said earlier is very important, and I'm going to say it in this way. When you're talking about the things that are being done that are kind of directing people into this direction or that direction, whether it is to, separate them on this issue or that issue, it deviates from the main issue that really needs to be looked at, which is that there needs to be rational thought and logic. There needs to be de-escalation of a lot of things. The police department should not have military weapons. Those things shouldn't exist. There's no reason for police to have automatic rifles and all these other things and tanks and everything else. By the same token, there really is no reason for any person, any citizen, to own a semi-automatic rifle. If the police don't have it, then there you go. There's no reason.
Well, wait a minute.
I've owned guns and stuff.
Damien, can I cut in here for a second? Okay, because the only adversaries out there are not just the police. There are regular street criminals who have semi-automatic weapons. And because, when those criminals attack a citizen, they're the only parties there and the cops aren't there yet. Doesn't it make sense that law-abiding citizens should have weapons equal to those in the hands of the criminals? And we know that a lot of drug criminals are getting assault-style weapons from the U.S. government from Fast and Furious.
I don't disagree with any of that. What I disagree with is that I shouldn't say disagree. My view is that there should be basically, if you eliminate this, and there is this thing should not exist anywhere.
What thing are you talking?
Let's say it's anything. Doesn't matter what it is. A widget. Let's say that this thing, you outlaw this thing, and it should not exist.
Okay, then the outlaws will have it, whatever it is.
Right, exactly. And you find out how they are getting and how they are accessing and getting this thing, and then you can go forward. So this would expose if the government is giving these widgets or these weapons or whatever to this party, or whatever, and it's showing that this is how it's getting there. They have to find a way to say that how did it get there? If you are a person that has something illegally, the first thing that and you use it to kill somebody, the first thing that they're going to do is to find out how you got a hold of that. And they have to expose that. That has to be done.
No, they don't. Damien, look at the whole Fast and Furious scandal, where the U.S. government was caught giving Mexican drug cartels the very same assault-style weapons they say we're not allowed to have. Nothing happened to anybody. It came and went, and that was the end of it. And the reality is that anybody who wants to invest the time learning a little machining skills and chemistry, they can make whatever weapons they want, even before the advent of 3D printing. And so you can't say we're going to ban semi-automatic weapons from the police and from the citizens.
Oh, no, I didn't say semi-automatic.
Okay, what is it you're talking about then?
I'm talking about automatic weapons. I'm talking about military-style weapons. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, you're talking fully automatic rather than semi-automatic. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, again, the problem is that anybody who knows how to do it, it's actually fairly easy to convert semi-automatics to fully automatics. In fact, somebody once sent me this illustration. There's a handle assembly that you can buy for the AR-15 where the entire receiver floats, and just by holding the trigger in the right position, it'll fire like it's automatic because the trigger keeps unengaging as the receiver recoils, and it's perfectly legal to own at this point. Right. And so, again, the criminals will have this stuff, and the only way that you...
Well, this is, in essence, the same. This again is getting to the same question of is having more nuclear weapons, or every country having nuclear weapons, or no country having nuclear weapons.
If
you have a gun and if you want to be prepared and you want to protect yourself from your neighbors around you, but all your neighbors around you have automatic weapons because they've done what you've just said, then what's the point of you having any weapon at all? Everybody has to either have the highest grade, the most lethal force weapon available, or they might as well not have anything at all.
Well, you need to go back and look at the United States Supreme Court decision under United States versus Miller, where the Supreme Court said the Second Amendment reserves to the American people the exact same weapons carried by the uniformed services. That's what the Supreme Court said, because it is impossible to deny these weapons to those willing to break the law. The only reason that the only way that you're going to have a public safety is for everybody to have guns that are equal to those held by the hands of the criminals. It's not ideal, but it is practical. Well, okay, then we agree to disagree. I agree
with you, but there has to get to a point where the logic has to come into play here, which is basically either everybody owns the most lethal weapon that they can possibly get their hands on, or they're under the possibility that they're going to basically be attacked if something
Yeah, that's exactly where we are right now. That's exactly where we are. Anyway, listen, I'm going to let you go here because we're obviously not going to agree on this. And I'm going to ask my other callers to be patient until after the commercial break because I want to relate a story, and I've mentioned this before. Do you know why the gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona is such an important piece of history? Because it was so rare when it happened. Now, the image of the Wild West where everybody is shooting everybody didn't actually happen. It was actually propaganda bought and paid for by the Eastern industrialists who didn't want their workers quitting their factory jobs and going out west for their, for their homestead and an independent lifestyle. And so these Eastern industrialists were paying writers to write these dime novels and make up all these horrible stories about how deadly it was and dangerous it was out there in the Wild West. But it really wasn't. Everybody was armed, and shootings were very rare, certainly compared to our modern society on a per capita basis. That's why the gunfight at the OK Corral became such a fixture in history. It was unusual to have it happen like that. The myth of the Wild Wild West sells movie tickets, and it sells books, and it sells magazines, but for the most part, the per capita instance of gun violence in the American West was far lower than you find in our cities today. And that's the absolute reality. Now, I understand the liberal ideal would be for everybody to be disarmed but the government. And I remember seeing a movie about that ideal fantasy state called Schindler's List. But the reality is the U.S. government is giving weapons of war, including fully automatic weapons, to terrorists in Syria and Libya and Mexican drug cartels. And so this idea that we can all live a happy, peaceful life if everybody is disarmed is nonsense because every gun control effort in history only disarms the law-abiding citizens, period, end of discussion. The only practical solution, and it's the one the Founding Fathers enshrined in that Second Amendment, is that everybody be armed to deter aggression, whether it's nation against nation, state against state, or individual against individual. That's it. And remember, all these mass shootings the gun grabbers are wagging at us all happen in gun-free zones where the targets were all intentionally disarmed. All right, we got to take a break for commercials right now. We've got a whole bunch of phone calls. Obviously, everybody's talking about gun rights today. We'll be right back. Hello, America. Welcome back to the show here. And because everybody seems to be thinking about this stuff so much, I just reposted my page of gun right articles to the main page at WhatReallyHappened.com, The Right to Keep and Bear Arms. We're going to obviously be talking about this a lot, so we're going to go here to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Hey, you keep forgetting about Fast and Furious Benghazi style.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other issue. The U.S. government is giving weapons of war, including fully automatic weapons, including chemical weapons, to all these other countries, to terrorist groups, to Mexican drug cartels. It's just the law-abiding American citizen that the U.S. government doesn't trust with these weapons.
And tow missiles and Stinger missiles I've seen on YouTube.
That's true. That's true. All of this stuff. And you are all required to pay for it, to send out all of these machines of death to all these other countries. But when you say, I have a constitutional right to keep and bear arms for personal and home protection, oh, no, you don't need that. You don't need, we'll succeed in taking the guns away from everybody, and then we'll all live together and hug each other and sing Kumbaya. And that is simply nonsense. History is against the gun grabbers. Every gun ban in history only disarms the law-abiding. Criminals will always have guns. They'll always want guns. They'll always be able to get guns. Either somebody will smuggle them in, or somebody will set up a clandestine machine shop. And for those of us who know how to build guns, I did a lot of black powder work when I was a kid. If you are in the middle of a disarmed society, if you're in the middle of a gun-free zone, even a black powder 4-shot gun gives you a tremendous advantage. That's just the reality. Go ahead.
People need to realize we are Rome. We are a welfare and a warfare state. This is all we got left thanks to our leadership. We are a warfare state. We sell weapons to all over the world. We arm terrorist groups all over the world. And to give up our weapons, and the government continue to sell weapons around the world is insanity.
Of course it's insanity. And you know what's really kind of ironic? In the years right after World War II, the U.S. government was taking all the surplus weapons that were left over from World War II. They were giving them to schools, so the schools could teach gun safety classes. I mean, you know, back then the government, you know, the government trusted the American people because the people trusted the American government. They were encouraging people to learn how to use weapons safely. Now we're at the point where Disneyland won't even allow toy guns through the front gate. Ooh, guns are bad. You should hate guns.
If the government wanted to protect you, they would not be arming terrorists, period. So to give up your guns is just idiotic.
The government doesn't want to protect you. The government wants to protect itself from you. That's what's going on here.
Hey, Mike, I want to switch topics to a more important. Russia is going to be soon testing their RS-28 Sarmat intercontinental missile, and that is that means God of fire. That's the Sarmat.
Oh, everybody's getting ready. They know the U.S. is on the war path, and they're trying to come up with a reason. They're trying to come up with something that will convince the United States to maybe change course. Unfortunately, when you look at people like Insane McCain, who is out there saying, I guarantee they won't do anything. We can go and do whatever we want. And the tragedy of all of this is that all of those who are calling for war, they won't pay its costs. They won't pay the bills. They won't lose their family members. They won't be the ones to catch bullets on the front line. Your kids will. So it's easy for them to go on out there and talk tough.
Well, at least Lindsey Graham stepped out of running for office.
Yeah, I was going to get into that next year, and one less Israel firster war hawk that we have to worry about. Okay?
Him and John McCain need to just leave the country. I mean, these guys are just creepos.
You know, all I can say is either the people of Arizona are collectively insane or there is massive election fraud going on in Arizona, because I can't understand why they keep sending this guy back to the Senate, him talking the way that he's talking about. Anyway, what?
South Carolina, they're crazy there too.
Yeah, well, again, we know election fraud is rampant all over this country. Our elections are so crooked they have to screw those ballots into the ballot box. All right, Dustin, I got to let you go here and take a phone call here from John in Barbados, who's been waiting very, very patiently. John, what's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael.
Aloha, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, but I'm incandescent with rage.
Okay.
These dumb animals trained by Israel are coming over from America, armed to the teeth, to patrol airports in Britain.
Okay. Well, that's not entirely new. Israeli companies have been getting the security contracts for all kinds of airports around the world for many years, including the airport that the shoe bomber departed from after getting past security, including the airport where the underwear bomber got past security and got on the plane, including every airport used by the 9/11 terrorists, were all under control of Israeli security companies. With a track record like that, I can't understand why these people keep getting hired, but they do.
Well, apparently these are American border guards that are coming over, and that is 10,000% unacceptable. 10,000%. As far as I'm concerned, whenever they're off duty, they're targets.
Please don't say things like that on my radio show.
To know that. I want the American government to know that. Get these animals out of Britain.
Okay.
And apart from that, I'm now calmed down, so, yeah.
Well, have yourself a Merry Christmas then, and Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you later, okay?
Okay, Michael.
All right, we're going to let you go, and all righty, getting on back to the political news, as was already mentioned, Lindsey Graham has dropped out of the presidential race, and that's a good thing. One less war hawk, Israel firster to worry about getting into the White House. Now, Hillary Clinton is, for all intents and purposes, she's guaranteed the Democratic nomination. She's already trying to campaign against Donald Trump. We saw that Saturday night during the Democratic debates. She was completely unconcerned about O'Malley and Sanders. She was on the warpath against Donald Trump because she knows the one GOP candidate she cannot beat is Donald Trump. And so she was out there claiming that ISIS is using videos of Donald Trump as a recruiting tool. And that one backfired because, first of all, there's no evidence to back it up. And apparently today, Clinton's spokeswoman is trying to defend Hillary's claim, running in circles and looking very, very nervous. But they were finally forced to admit, in point of fact, no, there are no ISIS videos featuring Donald Trump. It was just Hillary being Hillary and lying through her teeth again. Now, Hillary Clinton has also come out saying that the higher premiums we are all paying on Obamacare are due to glitches. No. The Democrats never intended that you pay far more money for your health care. Look at the Affordable Care. The name tells you we meant to lower your health care costs. And yes, they've gone up, but it's glitches in the system. And I don't think Hillary is thinking this very, very clearly or thinking it all the way through, because once you admit it's glitches, you're admitting the higher cost for health care shouldn't be there. And that's going to have people saying, well, why aren't we getting rebates? Why aren't we getting the prices back down where they're supposed to go? If this is all glitches leading to these sky-high insurance premiums and sky-high deductibles, then you're admitting it's a failure and it's a problem. Why aren't you fixing it? But Hillary's goal is to not get tarnished by Obamacare as she runs for the office and doesn't realize she just made the situation worse if it's glitches. Okay, we're coming up here on our top of the hour news break. I've got two callers waiting on the line, and I'm going to ask you to please be very patient while we go through our top of the hour news and commercials. I will take your phone calls just as soon as we come back from the top of the hour break. Then we're going to get into more fact-checking on claims made by Hillary during that Democratic debate because she's lying. She just says whatever she thinks is going to win the approval of the crowd in front of her and doesn't care if it doesn't match reality at all because she is a politician first and foremost. So we're going to take a break for our top of the hour news and commercials, back with phone calls and Hillary after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3, and we're going to go ahead and grab a phone call from Joe in California. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I wanted to say a couple of things before I got onto the topic that I really wanted to talk about. One of the things you were talking about was guns, and I know there was no automatic weapons when the Second Amendment was written. And I know the Eric Holder guy never was held responsible for his actions involved in any of that.
Yes.
But that's not my topic. Those are just things I wanted to say. The stuff that I wanted to talk about was one of them was the computer fraud nowadays. You see where people are rigging elections and how much of a role computers play in the lives of people, whether it's cheating on the lottery or rigging elections and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is, for the last couple of months, they've been trying to push this taxpayer-funded monorail down in Vegas.
Yeah, we got one of those here in Hawaii.
Well, what they got is somebody running over people along the sidewalks, and I don't know if that was an intentional move to try to move along a private-funded, taxpayer-paid-for monorail. That was one of the things that I wanted to say.
Well, I'm not hearing that there's a huge amount of opposition to the monorail in Las Vegas, and especially for that particular environment, I think it would actually be a good idea. It's more appropriate to that strip and downtown area, hooking that all together, than the one they're building here on the island of Oahu, which apparently...
Well, what they did was they did do a study long ago, and Circus had their own privately funded monorail for a long time, so they paid for a study and found out that the monorail was not feasible in Las Vegas. It just wouldn't work.
Well,
and the current monorail that they do have is bankrupt, and it said it wouldn't be out of bankruptcy until 2026. And so they hired some very powerful local lawyers to try to move along a taxpayer-funded solution to it. So I was just wondering if there was a tie between these people being run over on the sidewalk and this new idea of, hey, see, if we had a monorail, this wouldn't have happened.
I think it's a bit of a stretch. We know that the lady who did run into the crowd was recent homeless, and It may have just been a classic case of road rage, or maybe she was off of her prescription psychiatric medication. The problem with that theory is the damage to tourism in general to Las Vegas is probably going to be greater than the benefit to the monorail itself. Of course, people who are behind these things usually have a very monopolistic view of serving their agenda and not okay.
Monopoly generated false flag type thing. But here's my other comment. I've noticed a lot here in the LA area. Each time there's a police related shooting, the first thing they say is the individual tried to grab my gun, at which time we killed the person so they can no longer speak for themselves.
Yes.
And it's just so common where it says, well, they went for my gun, so, you know, and when they interview the people, the witnesses, the story don't jive with what the cops or the police union is otherwise saying.
No, in fact, there's a video that got put out of one of these shootings, you know, showing the cops shot the guy after he was handcuffed and then planted a gun. And it really is out of control right now. And it is building a lot of anger, as we've heard from some of our phone calls here, you know, where people are saying, you know, the cops are a bigger threat to our lives and safety than the criminals and the terrorists are.
Right. And there's a saying, I don't remember if it was the Bill of Rights or the Constitution, something like that, where it says a long train of abuses which throw, you know, and we're authorized to throw off said government.
That's the Declaration of Independence.
Okay. And then other than that, in my little notes here, I see a lot of politicians are using computers to rig lotteries so that they can stuff money in their pockets.
Well, I don't know if they're doing it. I mean, there have been a couple of lotteries that have been outed for fraud. But, you know, if there's
going to see more of it. You're going to see more and more computer software fraud as we become more dependent on computers, and especially in elections.
I'm in agreement, especially because the government turns a blind eye to all of it, because, you know, their friends are making money, and that's all that really matters in a fascist economic dictatorship, is for the government's friends to make money and for everybody else to be made poor.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking my call. That's what I wanted to say today.
All right, you got it. And we're going to switch over here to Gabby in Michigan. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Whoa, that was an oxymoron. My name is not Gabby. It's Kathy.
Kathy. Okay, this was mistyped in the little window to me, and, you know, I'm not telepathic. So, anyway, Kathy, what's on your mind?
I wanted to thank you for the GWX control panel. It worked marvelous. I am so excited and happy. Also, I write a little article in a magazine here called the Beacon News Magazine. Mm-hmm. And I write about once a month, once every 2 months, whenever it comes out. And I tell people about the real issues in the world. And I wanted to know if I could put the WhatReallyHappened.com website there and tell them about the GWX control panel for anybody. We have like 65,000 readers.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously the GWX control panel is not mine. It's not proprietary, but they put it out there as a public service, so I can't imagine that they would have any problem with you using it. And as a general rule, any of the original content at WhatReallyHappened.com may be copied and redistributed as long as it's not changed and re-edited and you include the attribution. Now, obviously, I cannot speak for content that is linked to What Really Happened from other sources, but any of my original articles, just help yourself.
Oh, good. And plus, I wanted to make a comment on the gun issue.
Yes.
My husband and I were sitting here just kind of bantering back and forth, and he said, well, Disney needs to replace Captain Hook's hook with a pokey stick.
Well, you know what's really amazing? I'm old enough to remember the original Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and the last time I actually went inside Disneyland, it had gone through a political correctness renovation. You know, and they had just taken out so much of the imagery, you know, of the pirates chasing the wenches. Now they've got the pirates chasing platters of food, and it was just like, oh, come on, people. I mean, this is just getting to the point of ridiculousness. And yes, I understand it's supposed to be Fantasyland, but it really got kind of ridiculous. And Disneyland is not the way it was when I first went there when I was 12 years old, where they were out there, you know, with the real history and of the frontier land, and they had a shooting gallery and all the rest of the stuff. Now it's all been stripped out, and it's all PC and, very liberal, and including the body cavity searches to get in, which is why the last time Claire and I wanted to go to Disneyland, we were in Southern California on business, and we got as far as the, getting your stuff gone through, and at that point we said, I can't be happy, I can't be relaxed, I'm being treated like a prisoner of war. And we turned around and we just left. We never even went inside the park.
I don't blame you. I have another thing.
Yeah.
Your theme song, and I believe, is it Claire singing?
The vocals are, I think you're thinking of Thanea Crone and What Really Happened. The instrumentals are all Claire, though.
Okay, now my husband and I argue every single day about this. We don't know. He says she's saying, "Oh yeah, oh
no,
yeah."
that was a can track. That was a can track. Claire, she's a brilliant musician, and I think she sings
is it oh yeah,
very
or is it some yeah?
No, it's oh yeah.
It is oh yeah.
It is oh yeah.
I hear an S in there. Well, then my husband says you need to come out with an app that's about where husbands are always right.
I don't think that app will have a chance of ever making it to the marketplace.
Oh man! Oh, then I can't sing some yeah anymore, which I didn't even know what it meant. But it sounds like some yeah to me.
No, it's oh yeah. It's a canned bite. I think Claire sings beautifully, but I can't get her to be in front of a microphone. So that's where we are. It's all computer and synthesized, and I'm her recording engineer. Okay.
You do a good job.
Thank you very much.
Love you guys, and you continue on.
We certainly will. Merry Christmas, Kathy, and we're going to let you go here and take another break for commercials. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. So we're talking about Saturday's Democratic debate, and never have I seen candidates with tongues so handy and information so uncertain. And I'm looking at this article over at USA Today saying, fact-checking the third Democratic debate. And there were a lot of whoppers out there, a lot of Pinocchios being handed out. Hillary Clinton claimed 3% of her campaign donations came from people in the finance and investment world. Technically correct until you include donations to outside groups supporting her candidacy. Then the number goes up by quite a wide margin. Clinton made that claim that ISIS is showing videos of Donald Trump to help recruit radical jihadists. That one has already been completely discredited. Clinton claimed the GOP nominees don't want to raise the minimum wage, but Rick Santorum was in favor. Clinton said we lose 33,000 people a year to gun violence. What she didn't say was that 63% of those are suicides. And if you ban the guns, they'll find some other way. Now, we ran a poll on our website, who won Saturday's Democratic debate, and as of the last time I looked, Clinton got 4%, O'Malley got 30%, Sanders got 66%. Now, Trump is out there saying that Hillary Clinton is a liar, she lies like crazy about everything, and she does. And we reposted that video, a compendium of her statements contrasted with videos that show she was lying. It's nonsense. And it's not just Donald Trump. Over at Western Journalism, they've got an article showing that polls, the public consistently sees Hillary Clinton as a liar. It's the top response. What's the first thing you think of when you think of Hillary Clinton? She's a liar. Now, Donald Trump is back out on the campaign trail, and he's challenging the news cameraman to pan the rooms where he is speaking to show the crowds he is drawing. Because the corporate media doesn't want you to know how many people are showing up so that you'll believe it when they steal the election from him. Trump understands the corporate media is not on his side. They're on Hillary Clinton's side. They'll make a big deal about it when she shows up to do a public speech and there's maybe 5 people in the audience. Now, over the weekend, Bernie Sanders' access to DNC computer voter data has been restored. Democrats came away with a really bad taste about this. That given that this was supposedly the Democratic National Committee's fault for not checking their software, it seemed inappropriate to try and punish Bernie Sanders. And all of this apparently came down from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and who has made no bones about the fact that she is going to make Hillary the Democratic nominee next year, no matter what it takes. Now, despite this little kerfuffle last week, Bernie Sanders was treating Hillary Clinton with kid gloves during the Democratic debate, and in fact directed his ire at Donald Trump, saying Donald Trump is the pathological liar. And at this point, I think it's obvious to everybody that Bernie Sanders wants to be Hillary's vice president. We started to think that when he was back saying, I'm sick and tired of hearing about the email scandal. And everybody cheered. So Bernie is being Hillary's lapdog. He wants to be her VP. He knows he can't win the White House, but he wants that number 2 spot. I hope he enjoys it. John Adams called the vice presidency the single most boring job in the entire government. Roger Stone came out commenting about Governor Chris Christie, saying his credibility is already badly tarnished. There's hardly anybody there who has a high credibility rating with the American people other than Donald Trump, because he's an outsider and not a professional politician right now. Interesting little story coming out of Blacklisted News. Politically correct universities are killing free speech. And they're absolutely right. And that is the antithesis of what college and universities are supposed to be about. The place you go to develop new ideas and explore new ways of looking at the world. And it's being shut down by political correctness. Now, comedian Tina Fey is out there saying that she is done apologizing for offensive jokes. If she says something and somebody somewhere is offended, too bad. She's saying social media generated outrage has gotten out of hand. I absolutely agree. And we reposted that video of that Australian comedian talking about being offended. Okay, be offended. I don't care. Nothing happens when you're offended. But this idea that we can't say or do anything because it might offend somebody somewhere on the planet is nonsense. You can't have political correctness and freedom of speech at the same time. You can't have political correctness and democracy at the same time. Because the very democratic process involves saying things that some people are going to object to and find offensive. Now then, let's see. I want to skip on down here. I want to get to some issues before we run out of time, because I've obviously... Okay, here we go. As you may or may not be aware, LifeLock, which is a company that sells you protection for your identity, is going to have to pay a $100 million fine to the Federal Trade Commission, because apparently LifeLock is not as protective of customers' identities as the advertising says they are, and apparently was being caught being very reckless with customers' sensitive information, including names, social security numbers, credit card numbers, and bank information. So, apparently the driverless cars have developed a bit of a problem, and it's a conceptual one. They're following the traffic laws to the letter, and when they are in traffic where human drivers are maybe exceeding the speed limit a little bit, they're getting into trouble. And they're getting into accidents. They're having more accidents than the human drivers. And yeah, it reveals a flaw in the thinking, that the cars cannot evaluate the behavior of human drivers around them. Now, if everybody is in a driverless car, if driving your own car becomes banned, the system in theory could work as long as it's not written by the same people who did the Obamacare website. But as long as humans are in the equation, and the driverless cars are not truly artificially intelligent, I think it's going to be a problem. We've got to take a break for commercials, and we'll be right back after these few words from our sponsors. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here, and I want to take some time to talk about Windows 10. And there has been so much argument, rancor, confusion going on, I figured it was time to find out what's really going on. So we had a friend who donated a Windows 7 laptop as a backup music support machine for Claire. Claire is the choir director at a church, and we need to have playback and some MIDI support. And I have this old netbook left over from Lost that I used to do that, but it's getting old. And I wanted a spare machine so that we don't have a situation where Claire's choir is performing and we have a breakdown. So somebody gave us this Acer Windows 7 laptop, single-core processor. It's not a very, very powerful machine. And I decided just to find out what's going on, I would take off all the blocks and I would allow it to update to Windows 10. And it started out, first of all, with this big notice that you cannot sue Microsoft no matter what happens. You agree to be bound by binding arbitration, with obviously the arbitrators working for the computer industry. That was a little unnerving. So the upgrade went on through, and frankly, it looks like it's a cross between Windows 7 and Windows 8, because you get the Windows 7 kind of desktop. Then if you hit the Start button, you get the Windows 8 little tiles, all of which, at least for the moment, go to, wouldn't you love to buy the thing that would normally go here? So now the good news is that the legacy music software that supports Claire's choir work did load and install on Windows 7. And as far as the rest of it was concerned, it's what Windows has always been, except in new locations, so you have a very hard time finding anything. And unfortunately, all of the search tools and all the rest of it have a cloud-first bias. You can't tell them, just search the local machine. I don't want to find out what's on the web or whatever because I can't use it. And so it's very hard to use, and it's a lot of work to figure out how to get it to do what you want it to do. Then I got this little message saying updates are ready, restart the machine. And the machine restarted, and I got all of the little messages about we're improving Windows experience for you and all this other stuff. And the machine came back up, and everything I had stored on the desktop, Claire's music files and data, were gone. Not the recycle bin, I mean gone. Now, this being a backup machine to other systems that are backup, it's not like the data is actually lost, but I was thinking immediately of that email we got last week where this woman in Seattle, her computer updated to Windows 10 without her permission, which means I guess the binding arbitration agreement is invalid, and all of the data for her customers vanished. And that's what happened here on this machine. And I was already in Windows 10, and it did some kind of a reset update from Windows 10 to Windows 10, and all of the data files were gone. Just absolutely gone. And I did a little search out on the web, and apparently this is a major epidemic. It's all over the place. And when you go to the Microsoft website, I got to tell you, that it's like they want to annoy you, because all of their posts say, this shows why you should always be backing up your files. I mean, if you've lost your files, really, it's your fault. No, Microsoft, it's your fault because you're forcing an operating system on us with clearly some major problems. And for most people, there's no way to get the data back. It's not going into the recycle bin. It's not being moved to another folder. It simply vanishes. Maybe they were trying to put it up on the cloud, but because I didn't have the cloud activated, maybe it vanished. Oh, and by the way, for you security people, I put this laptop on its own connection to the internet. It's not connected with our intranet because we don't know what's really in there. And, you know, at the point where this thing did its little reset, I was about ready to say, maybe I'm being a little too harsh on Windows 10. Yeah, it's, you know, the same thing dressed up in new look. You know, we're going to have to learn how everything we used to use is now in a new location. But the end result is Microsoft really didn't give me anything on this that would make me want to upgrade to Windows 10. I guess that's why they're forcing it. But this is all over the web. People are losing their files on Windows 10, and our corporate media apparently is too busy reminding us of those last-second Christmas shopping opportunities to mention this. This is a major problem for people. Now, apparently, next year, Microsoft is already planning on launching a new improved Windows 10. They've even got a new name for it, Redstone. And maybe their plan is force everybody onto Windows 10. It's an unmitigated disaster. Then they're going to sell you Redstone because Redstone is Windows 10 that actually works. Isn't that worth the price to stop losing your files? And I hate to be sarcastic, no, actually I don't. They deserve it. But at this point, I mean, I got this laptop running Windows 10 back to the condition where it can support my wife's music. It's in terms of its usability, its utility. It's exactly where it was Friday night, and it took me till yesterday afternoon to get it there. Huge waste of my time, and at my age, I don't have a lot to waste. So at this point, based on that vanishing file problem, under no circumstance should you go to Windows 10. Because everybody who's upgraded to Windows 10, they're having problems. And the corporate media is absolutely silent about all of it. Don't take my word for it. Go on out, do a web search. Windows 10 vanishing files. And you'll see for yourself. Now, last week, computer security experts, white hat hackers, had determined that the IP addresses being used for ISIS messages tracked back to British government offices. Now, in a blatant attempt to save face, the British government is saying, well, actually, they sold those IP numbers to Saudi Arabia, and they have no idea what Saudi Arabia is doing with that. I didn't realize you could sell an IP address. But that's what the British government is saying in response to this outing that the ISIS Twitter communications seem to be coming from British government offices. By the way, if you're going on out to a web page and you don't get the web page, there's an error code that's returned, like 404 page not found. Now there is a new standardized adopted code, error 451. And what that means is the page exists, you're not allowed to see it. It's blocked, meaning censorship. So if you're going to WhatReallyHappened.com or any other Patriot or independent media website and you get a 451 error, it means somebody somewhere has told the web serving company that story is verboten for the general public. You will not allow it to go out. And they have a separate error code for that. They're not hiding behind 404 anymore. It's code 451. Hillary Clinton, among all of her other things, wants a Manhattan Project scale effort to break all encryption. Good luck, Hillary, because we can come up with new methods of encryption faster than you can break them. It's like gun control. You're only going to affect the law-abiding citizens, and the real criminals and terrorists are going to have secure communications and fully automatic weapons. Now then, back to human-caused global warming. We're seeing more reports about how climate activists are trying to silence skeptics, threats of lawsuit, smears, career wrecking, all of which telegraphs they know they're losing the argument. Story out of Natural News poking fun at the latest claim that global warming caused the San Bernardino shooting. I mean, that's how desperate they are. We got to take a break for commercials here at this point. We'll be back with more about human-caused global warming and the hoax after these few words. Hello, hi, America. Welcome back to the last segment of our program today here on this Monday before the Christmas holiday. We're talking about human-caused global warming. And have you noticed a very weird thing in the corporate media? The weather reports are always, we've got record warm temperatures here, and then also it's snowing. We've got major record-setting snow already hitting the country, and then the corporate media is out there saying, there's a little bit of snow. We got record warm temperatures. A little bit of snow there. The two are rather inconsistent. If you've got snow, you've got freezing temperatures. Now, over at dailycaller.com, they have an article that is repeating something that we have observed through the years. The National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, which is still trying to push their claim that 2015 was the hottest year on record, and is still refusing to share the information on which they base that conclusion with Congress or the American people who pay their bills. NOAA's been caught repeatedly using compromised temperature measuring stations. Their temperature measuring stations are placed on top of concrete, in the outflow of building air conditioners, over asphalt. We've got a photo of an official National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration temperature measuring station right next to a trash incinerator. Now, back when Al Gore was starting this whole global warming situation, NOAA shut down all their temperature monitoring stations in the remote rural areas, which tend to be cooler because of the foliage. The majority of their temperature measuring stations are inside cities, which are very warm places, because all the buildings are taking the heat inside the building and pumping it outside the building. That's what air conditioning does. Air conditioning doesn't actually cool anything. It takes the heat from inside the building and puts it outside the building, just like the refrigerator in your kitchen. It takes the heat inside the box and it pumps it outside the box. And if you're taking your temperature readings outside the box or the building, you're going to get a higher result. So they're out there. Now then, interesting little story coming out of humanevents.com, pointing out that far from carbon dioxide being a toxic pollutant, as declared by imperial edict from the Environmental Protection Agency, the reality is carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere are dangerously low and approaching a point of having a significant impact on plant life on Earth. Now remember, plants need carbon dioxide to live and grow and produce food. Commercial greenhouses artificially increase CO2 levels inside to make the plants grow bigger. If carbon dioxide levels plunge, plants die off. And if there's no plants, there's no food. And if there's no food, there is no us. Meanwhile, in the real world, whiteout conditions, numerous crashes reported in snow across West Michigan. Snoqualmie Pass, that's in Washington State. Claire and I used to go up there all the time. By mid-December, had already accumulated more snow than last year's entire snow total. Going to be another insane, heavy winter. Utah, the weather forecast you need to know for travel. This being Christmas week, a lot of people going to visit family, and apparently a winter storm warning has been issued for the mountains of Utah through Wednesday evening. They are going to get pounded with snow. That's a direct quote from the article. Corporate media is going to be out there saying, oh, horrible, huge amounts of snow, but record high temperatures. Trust us. Now then, interesting little story. Late last week, there was a propaganda video put out by a blacksmith who took a piece of steel, heated it in his forge, and then put it in an anvil and bent it back and forth to say, see, fire could have brought down the World Trade Towers. A couple of problems with that. First of all, we don't know what kind of steel he was using. Second, even in the video, he admits he is heating the steel to 1800 degrees. That is 300 degrees hotter than jet kerosene can burn at if it is properly combusted and carbureted inside a turbine. JP1 kerosene just burning in a pail or on the floor doesn't get anywhere near that hot. And needless to say, this video has been dismissed and ridiculed all over the net. But it's a sign of just how scared the government is, that the American people aren't buying these cover-ups and deceptions any longer, nor should we. There is nothing in the Constitution that allows the government to lie to you, to play tricks on you, and there's nothing in the Constitution that obligates you as an American citizen to believe everything the government says. The burden of proof is on them. As well it should be. All righty. Now, apparently over in Poland, there is a mass movement of Polish Christians uniting together, ostensibly to defend Christianity from the Muslim invasion. So, we're back to the Middle Ages and holy crusades, religious crusades. Another story coming out of Russia insider. U.S. elites are trying to destroy Europe with immigrants, and there may be some merit to that because all of these Middle Eastern immigrants that are pouring into Europe, there's plenty of room for them in Saudi Arabia, but they're never going there. They're being lured to Europe by all these promises from these non-governmental organizations, many of which are tied in with George Soros, and we've all seen the videos where these people arrive in Europe and say, where's my free car? Where's my free house? Where's my free cable TV? Now, over in Hungary, they had an opinion towards immigration, which had been denounced when it first came on out, saying this has to be under control. Now, as things deteriorate all across Europe, Hungary's strict stance on migration is now becoming more and more acceptable to all parties in Hungary's government. The opposition party is now saying, look, we think these people are jerks, but in this issue, yeah, we have to agree with them. Now, as you know, this woman went berserk with a car, drove along the Las Vegas Strip sidewalk, hit dozens of pedestrians. The police think it may have been an intentional act. Yeah, I think it definitely was. So where are the calls to ban cars? I mean, if this was an intentional act, if this woman took this car and hit these pedestrians, shouldn't we ban cars for all law-abiding safe drivers because of this one woman? No, of course not. Just like we shouldn't be banning gun ownership for all law-abiding and safe shooters on the basis of a couple of crazies. For you Star Wars fans out there, do we blame the lightsabers for the evil Empire and Darth Vader? Now, out in California, getting on back to the carbon Nazis screaming about carbon dioxide, you got to do all this stuff. Apparently, California is in the middle of their worst natural gas leak in 40 years. It is putting out 145,000 pounds per hour of methane, a gas that is 70 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And they're saying they're not even going to be able to begin to try and plug this leak until sometime next spring. But we don't care about that. We're not trying to get a methane tax passed. We want a carbon tax passed. So corporate media is going to talk about the carbon dioxide. And who cares about methane? We can't make money off of that. Congress has repealed the country of origin meat labeling rule. When you go, oh, there's the music. All right, time for me to get out of here and do Jim Goddard's show. We'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, with the lovely Lady Claire here on the Genesis Communication Network. Until then, stay safe, stay skeptical. Share what you know with everyone that you know. We're going to try and work out all the tech issues with the streaming player. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.